news. Right, should we get started? Welcome again to my panel, comedian Leo Kearse and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. Firstly, welcome, guys. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us, Albie. I'm about to call you Abby. But he's not Abby, he's Albie. Right, so I'm going to have to start with you, Albie. You're Conservatives Against Racism, so, you know, I don't know which side of the fence you sit on with this particular issue, but what do you think? Do you believe that Boris may have had a hand in it, or do you think that he didn't, or...?
I don't really mind, to be honest. I find it quite difficult to get outraged by this story, to be honest. My understanding is that Pen Farthing had a high-profile campaign to get his animals out of Afghanistan. He raised money through fundraising to charter a flight to Afghanistan to evacuate the animals, and also 67 people who are now starting their lives in the United Kingdom. So I find it just difficult to get enraged about this. Surely it's a good news story.
Well, that's what I thought, but people are sort of saying that, well, Boris, he may have lied about that, and if he lied about this... I mean, is this something that we should even, you know, be involved in a sense, as a huge news story that sort of precludes us from talking about other things?
I think so, but I think it's quite clear that there are a lot of people out to get Boris at the moment. Yes, he has made a lot of mistakes recently, but I think it's also important to note that Sir Philip Barton, the top civil servant in the Foreign Office, has actually apologised to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee for giving incorrect information linking the Prime Minister to this decision. So I just think it's a storm in a teapot.
What do you think, then? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know, the evil of this man seems to know no bounds. Last week he had a birthday cake.
Oh, my God.
A birthday cake. And
well,
this week he's saving some dogs. I mean,
and people.
He's like a James Bond baddie, isn't he? I don't know, I think people are upset about this because, you know, there may be some suggestion that he's prioritised animals over humans. But as a country, don't we do that? I mean, animal charities get so much more money than charities that actually save human lives. So, you know, maybe he's just reflecting what the voters want. Also, I think, you know, in fairness to Boris, this isn't the worst thing that happened with our withdrawal from Afghanistan. And he perhaps thought there was more time to get other people out. I don't think people realised it was going to be such a cataclysmic rush and, you know, such a catastrophic deadline for getting people out.
Well, it's true what you say as well. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen that film, John Wick, and the guy goes in and he kills all these people, but then he doesn't kill the animals. Everyone goes, oh, thank goodness for that. Have you seen the film?
No, I've never seen the film.
It's a very good one, yeah. When you get a chance, watch it. It's brilliant.
Definitely will.
Brilliant.
And do we know the Taliban's position on animals? Would they have kept the animals as pets, or would they have...
I might have eaten them. No, I've no idea. I have no
I'm glad you said that, not me.
Well, I don't think they'll be right. I don't think they'll be watching. Really, what happened to this weekend?
I went on Good Morning Britain.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I thought I was having a reasonable debate. And it turns out, apparently, what I said can be misconstrued as the most evil and terrible racist thing that anybody could ever say. Basically, I defended, not so much defended Boris Johnson's joke about people in burqas looking like
no, we can't,
letterboxes. But I said, you know, it's a visual gag. It's not a hateful comment. He was in the article. He was actually defending the right of people to wear burqas.
Well, he was actually doing that. He was actually defending them. But yeah. So listen. So again, it does seem like a sort of concerted attack against Boris. Yeah. I am genuinely a little bit sick of hearing it. I'm sick of hearing Partygate and all those things. But it was because I listened to something that Pen Farthing was saying, and I just thought that when will this end? This whole sort of every single thing they're trying to find something that is wrong or negative. When actually this story, if we're to believe that he had any hand in it, which again he denies, he didn't have any hand in it. And even as you said, the person what's the guy's name?
Sir Philip Barton.
That's it. Sir Philip Barton has come out and said, well, actually, I apologise for the words I used. They may well have been misleading. So it is interesting that it does feel to me that mainstream on the media seem to pick up on this, and then they ran with it. Even Tom Tugendhat, with his comments, he was inaccurate with what he said. So it just seems nobody's picking up on these things at all.
But quickly in defence of Tom, I think at the time the facts weren't established. Sir Philip Barton hadn't come out and said that he'd misled anyone. And at the time that it was all happening, you know, emotions were very high. And when the news story first came out back when the evacuation was going on, I will be honest, I was annoyed at the way that it was being kind of presented to the public. But now that the facts are out in full, I'm no longer annoyed because it's clear to me that actually I don't think any wrongdoing took place.
But don't you think the media, though, I mean, in a sense, to reflecting a story in that way when it really wasn't as they did, should actually come out and apologise, seeing as they're, baying for blood every time Boris does something. Well, they are, aren't they? Every time somebody gets something. But they won't apologise. They've done it to me. I've had an issue where I was on a programme and they literally completely misquoted and added things in that I hadn't said. Yeah. And everyone was like, how could you do that? And everything. I'm like, if you play the clip, you haven't actually heard me use those words. Yeah. But they were able to do that. I did nothing about it. I couldn't really. There wasn't any point. Because if I said anything, everyone went, oh, you're just saying that now to protect yourself. And it was like, no, if you listen to the clip, I haven't said anything. Yeah. But still...
The media always misquote, misrepresent, to make a story, to create clickbait, to create a headline that people are going to want to click on. So, they'll throw accusations of racism, for example, into a headline. And, if the media had to apologise for every time they misrepresented or misquoted someone, they'd never stop apologising.
Well, there you go.
Time to do any news.
Well, there you say it, because exactly the same way as Prime Minister and everybody else, if we're all being forced to apologise for things that we did wrong, then perhaps the media should start speaking up when they've actually misrepresented something and start apologising and let the public start to hear that what you've read and the way we've misled you 2 years later or 2 years ago, which is what they're getting Boris for, perhaps they should start apologising for their misrepresentation of the facts and the stories, and also people like Tom Tugendhat. As you said, though, of course, with respect, he didn't know all the facts. Well, he does now, so he should apologise as well. They should all, if they're going to force Boris and the civil servants and everyone to apologise for misrepresented things or breaking rules, then they all need to be saying sorry.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, they agree with me. This is an absolute first. What's going on? What that going? Listen, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV. Albie Amankona. So, Albie, you've been listening. What do you think about this? I mean, I thought that Bernard made a very clear case in explaining it and actually breaking down the elements in it that people are sort of slightly objecting to. What's your view?
Absolutely. I mean, I listened very carefully to what Bernard had to say, but I think I have a slightly different opinion, maybe more in line with the government's opinion. And it's my understanding that the main purpose of Clause 9 and removing citizenship without notice is in cases where it's almost impossible to get in touch with the person whose citizenship is being removed. And of course, it doesn't apply to people who only have British citizenship or who don't have a claim to citizenship abroad. It applies to people who have dual citizenship or who could have a claim to citizenship in another country. So, for example, I have a claim to Ghanaian citizenship, for example. I don't have the citizenship, but I've got a claim to it because that's where my grandfather was born. So I don't necessarily see a problem if citizenship is stripped without notice, if the government has made all reasonable attempts to get in touch with that person, to give them notice, and it's my understanding that that is why Clause 9 is being implemented to reflect the changing threats of national security that we see.
That's 36 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. You're either listening on digital radio or watching on TV. So back to our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should the police have got involved in Partygate? Sue Gray is expected to hand her report to Downing Street shortly, but with significant details taken out. I mean, it's after the police asked for minimal reference to the made-to events that they are looking in order to avoid any prejudice to their investigation. So I'm asking, should the police have really got involved in it? It's the Great British Debate, and what are your thoughts? Get in touch, as you know, via the usual channels, at GB News, via Twitter, or why not GBviews at gbnews.uk. Right, let's see what my panel make of this. I've got co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona, and comedian Leo Kearse. Leo, I'm going to start with you then. The police, they're getting involved. 6% of crimes is all they're solving. I mean, could they really be doing this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've got better things to do than to police COVID restrictions that went for all through lockdown. But I don't think the police should be involved in this because the police were there. The Prime Minister has constant police protection. So the police obviously knew the party was going around.
If
going
it was
ahead.
a party, if it was a party.
You know, I don't want to jeopardise the investigation, but, but if the alleged party and the alleged birthday cake were taking place, then the police were standing at the front door and would have seen the disco lights and heard the champagne corks popping. So I think it's ridiculous to have them policing themselves. And also, it's funny, you mentioned that the rules are confusing, so they might not have known the civil servants and the government ministers might not have known was they made the rules.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't
surely
mean
the people who made the rules should understand the rules.
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether that counts for much at all. I mean, they were confusing. So, for example, let me give you some of the rules, and I can remember them. So, when you went to a restaurant, you could have 6 people from 6 different households all sitting together, but you could only have 2 people in your household to have 2 different households in your own house, which then didn't make any sense at all. You could only be with 6 people, but if you're a family of 7 or even 8, then somebody has to sit on the sidelines. And in Scotland, they didn't count the children, but in England, they did. I mean, come on, it was ridiculous.
I mean, looking back at a lot of the rules now, with COVID behind us, a lot of them do look, out of proportion, I would say, and not really making sense, especially that there were different rules in the 4 nations of the United Kingdom. But on the specific point about whether or not the police should be getting involved in Partygate, I actually think they should be getting involved in Partygate. I mean, as of June 2021, I think over 110,000 fixed penalty notices had been issued for people breaking the COVID rules. And if you were one of those people who had been issued one of those fixed penalty notices, of course you would want the police to get involved and be issuing those fixed penalty notices to people in the government who had broken the rules.
Well, you should be given a refund, I think, and the government should be then forced to pay the fee. Or, alternatively, the government should be forced, those who have broken the rules should be forced to pay the fines, and everyone still has paid their fines. I mean, but that's all that would happen. Why should it then be a wider issue? Because people say, "Oh, get rid of Boris, he broke the rules." Do you believe it should now be a wider issue that he should go because of that?
I think we'll have to wait and see, and I hate to have to say this, but I think we will have to wait and see what the Sue Gray report says whenever it's released or redacted or whatever, because we just don't actually know, well, they're saying we don't actually know what happened. Obviously, there were some rule breakages that went on at Number 10 and in Downing Street, and it seems with the Leader of the Opposition as well, Keir Starmer and one of his MPs. And I think it's absolutely right that MPs wait and see what happens with the Sue Gray report, and then maybe they'll put in their 54 letters and there'll be a vote of no confidence.
Well, don't you think the rest of the world are slightly laughing at us that we should be involving ourselves in such a triviality when, of course, we've got, war potentially between Russia and Ukraine. We've got a cost of living crisis coming down the road. There's so many of them. Even Keir Starmer, he had some sort of get-together as well with some people, but he said it wasn't a party. I mean, how far are we going to go with this?
This isn't a triviality. This goes right to the heart of trust in government. If the government are making rules, so they're setting these rules and then not following them
themselves. Are you
surprised?
I am surprised.
No, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. You're talking as though you're surprised. I'm not surprised.
I really think they should. And even Neil Ferguson, the doomsayer of COVID, he was breaking the rules to have an affair. Dominic Cummings was driving to Barnard Castle to test his eyesight. They were all at it. Matt Hancock was having an affair.
And those are only the ones that we know of, okay? Because
exactly.
We're scrutinising those in power, but if you start to scrutinise those who weren't in power, I mean, you had Barry Gardner going off to the Black Lives Matter protest and even tweeting about the fact that he was doing that. He was told off, but it was against the rules at the time. That was hardly policed properly by the police at all, but they couldn't wait to give you a ticket if you went off to a beach but weren't wearing a Black Lives Matter T-shirt. I mean, it's just...
Lots of us broke the rules,
exactly.
But we weren't making these ridiculous rules. So, I mean, I think it's fair enough that I met with friends and had dinner and breached COVID restrictions. I think that's, I disagreed with the rules, but I wasn't imposing the rules on other people. The government were.
So because you broke the rules, but you disagreed with the rules, but you broke them, you would say that those who made the rules, who also did what you did, should be punished?
Yeah.
With what, a fixed penalty notice or lose their jobs?
Well, I mean, if a fixed penalty notice is the punishment, then, yeah, that's the punishment.
That is the punishment.
Yeah.
Why should they be fired?
They can all have a whip round, pay for it.
I think the argument for people saying there needs to be change at Number 10 isn't necessarily because the rules were broken. It's because it's quite clear to me and to many other people that the Prime Minister's been getting some very bad advice since, I think, the Owen Paterson scandal. And I think the way that Number 10 has responded to a lot of events has been poor. And I think with better responses to things, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in now.
Well, I would agree that obviously the narrative needs to change at Number 10. And that's a whole different thing. They, having parties like that, even without restrictions, I mean, it's great, but hello, we're the taxpayers, we're sort of funding you guys. You should actually be doing the job of running government. So to me, on that level, but I don't believe that people who broke those rules should be fired simply because there's too much to do. And can you imagine if we're going for another general election or the mess? You saw what they did with Brexit. Ugh. Let's not go there. Well, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome one of our great British voices. Now, this is your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you think about the topics that we are discussing. Jonathan James is a managing director at Tregarthen. I haven't said that right. How do you say it, Jonathan? You're there in Cornwall.
Tregarthen, Nana. You're almost
I was almost there. Tregarthen. See, I got it now. You're there in Cornwall. Must be lovely. Jonathan, do you think that the police should get involved in Partygate?
I think everyone I've spoken to this week thinks it's a giant storm in a teacup, and we should be doing a lot less of that and a bit more of the patriotic, get a bit of context, a bit of balance. And I actually sell tea grown in England all over the UK, and I've been traveling quite a bit this week, talking to, I would say, classic tea drinkers, which is the majority of this country. It's our national drink, as you know. And they just think it's not credible to be investigating cake, for goodness sake. We all love cake. Come on, it's not a normal house. If you've been to Number 10, I've been there a few times as an export champion, and it's, this guy lives on the job, and we want him to do that. He wasn't voted in to be an average Joe, and people he must show integrity and a bit of humility. But I just think people think perfect could be the enemy of good, and he's got a lot done. The export community just want to get on, be patriotic, sell great British stories around the world, and everyone I speak to overseas just think this is a really eccentric British nonsense. And I think that chap that drove to Barnard Castle to test his eyes looks like he might be behind all this. And people can see through that, even if he can't. So I think put the kettle on and let's enjoy the rest of the Roaring Twenties.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jonathan. That's Jonathan James. He's a great British voice. He's there in Cornwall. Well, back to the panel. See? That's what I said, a storm in a teacup. He's on it. That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, OK. Is this something that you destabilise a leader for? And is this really where we want to go as a country? Because, and I've said it before, it's like a headless chicken, cut off the head, but then you can put another head on. The body is exactly the same. It's not going to change anything, really, apart from the person visually at the top who appears to be in power, but probably isn't really controlling that much at all.
No, I disagree. I mean, I think some leaders, some politicians have a great deal of personal credibility and responsibility. Like Liz Truss, for example.
Liz Truss. Trust. Put your trust in trust.
Yeah. In Liz we trust, I think.
In Liz we trust, yeah.
Boris has always been, his brand is lying and being a buffoon. And, we've known that. And it's fun to have somebody like a mayor who's like that. But being Prime Minister requires a certain level of gravitas.
Well, that's
and
what
taking
you
the job
say.
seriously.
Well, it's the people at the EU seem to be slightly afraid of him. He was Theresa May, who had all the qualities that you've talked about, with the kitten heels and the little, My mum said, "Oh, that Theresa May, look at that. She's going back and forward. Nothing is happening. Ah, that woman, almost as bad as Nicola Sturgeon." Except Nicola gets things done. Theresa didn't get anything. Well, things done, whether you like them or not. I mean, she does. But the thing is, whether you like Boris or not, he gets things done. Look at Theresa May. The person that you've described sounds a bit like Theresa May. What did she get done? Nothing.
But, Nana, I think it's possible to both accept that Boris Johnson has done some fantastic things since he's been in government. He got rid of the Brexit deadlock. I think he handled the vaccine programme very well. We got the fastest growing economy in the OECD. And also appreciate that he made rules and then broke them. Like, that is a bad thing to do. And people are, despite what the gentleman said earlier, a lot of people are very angry about what's happened. And I can understand why they're upset, which is why it's important that we get to the bottom of it, and then, the punishments that need to be implemented
which are
implemented.
Absolutely. We get to the bottom of it and move on. I can see why people are upset, because they followed the rules foolishly. Not that I didn't follow the rules. Of course I followed them as best I could, but my support bubble became extremely big. There were people in that bubble that I'm like, I don't know whether I want you in it. Right. And stuff. Well, listen, it's time for my quick-fire quiz as I test my panel on some of the day's other stories. I'm with comedian Leo Kearse and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. They've both got buzzers. Leo, press your buzzer now. Albie, your buzzer. Fabulous. Right. So that's it. Those are the sounds. Right, let's start with question number 1. OK, so what sold at auction for £170,000 this week? Was it A, the first edition of James Bond's novels? Was it B, Cristiano Ronaldo's first Manchester United shirt? Or C, Banksy's model village stable? Please play along at home. Answer. What do you think? A, B or C? Albie.
I've got no idea, so I'm going to go for A.
A is the correct answer. Well done. Very good. Yes, it was indeed. Yes, A. the 8 first edition James Bond novels, which were signed by Ian Fleming, sold for £170,000. Is that all? They were discovered in a library in a holiday home of the late author Paul Galitko. Have you ever stumbled on anything of value in your house? I'm going to start with Leo because I bet there's nothing in it.
I found a £20 note.
Did you?
It's worth 20 quid. Had it appraised.
Very good.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I don't think I have. But I've never looked, to be honest.
No, that's so sad.
Have you?
No, one time I found a £5 that was in my back pocket of my jeans.
Oh, I love it. It's free money.
Isn't it? Literally, well, ish. Question 2. OK, true or false? Food, which is years past its best before date, has been banned from sale online. True or false? Oh, I don't know. I think it was Leo got there slightly quicker. Go on, Leo.
Is that true?
Well, I don't know. Let me see. No, it's false. It's been banned. Leo, you usually win this. You're on a losing streak. I think you lost the last one as well to Calvin. Online sales of food years past its sell-by date is actually going strong. Ambient foods such as tinned products like biscuits and sauces can be sold years after their best before date. OK, I can tell you that, it says it's false here. I've been told you're right, but you said...
So am I right or wrong?
I don't know. It says false on my sheet. It says false, it hasn't been banned. Does that make it true? Do you know what? False, it hasn't been banned.
Sue Gray needs to investigate
We need Sue Gray. Sue, if you've got time, when you finish publishing or not publishing the full thing, let us know. Well, Northamptonshire-based Best Before It's Gone is selling 220ml bottles of Heinz mustard with a best before date of June the 20th, 2019. So for just £1.
Does that include delivery?
I don't know, that's probably like £2.99. My daughter keeps doing that. She buys some awful stuff on that terrible website, I won't say. But the delivery is usually more expensive than the clothing, which I'd hate to... She should never get in front of an open flame after any of those. Right, so what about
After
you?
eating that sauce.
Do you eat food that's gone best before?
Yeah, of course, the nose never lies. If you're worried if milk or cheese isn't good...
Give it a sniff.
Give it a sniff.
Give it a sniff.
Yeah, we're animals. We can tell.
Absolutely.
Do you do that as well?
Oh, of course I do. My sister doesn't do it at all, but I do, because I think there is so much food wastage that goes on in supermarkets because of best before dates, and you can easily just give it a sniff, and if it smells bad, don't eat it or drink it. It's very simple.
That's quite simple. OK, question 3. Who's been excluded from applying for a job as a builder in Chatham? Is it A, snowflakes? Is it B, former offenders? Or C, brunettes? Oh, I think that was Albie.
Is it snowflakes?
It is, of course, it's snowflakes. A job advert for the labourer in Chatham has explicitly banned snowflakes from applying. Adam Whedon, who owns the construction company that put it up, said that he'd burnt through 10 Workshire men in a year who love their phone and want their mummy to pamper them. So should employers ban snowflakes from applying? Yes or no, Albie?
How do you define a snowflake?
Well, he just defined it.
I think it would be difficult for a large employer to define a snowflake.
Well, he managed it. What do you think? So
I
yes
think it'd
or
be
no?
hard.
Yes or no, Albie?
Well, no, I don't think they
What do you
should
think?
ban snowflakes.
Well, this isn't like my definition of a snowflake, but yeah, I mean, obviously you need somebody who's going to be tough, who's going to stay there for the full working day and like lug all this stuff around. So yeah, it's fair enough for him to want somebody who's tough enough to
I'm
do
with
it.
him as well. Ban them. Question 4. Nearest answer wins. How many sick days are people now allowed to take off work without a doctor's note? Albie.
Is it 10?
What's your guess?
9?
Oh dear, you should have gone up. Albie wins it. It's 28 days.
28?
That terrible movie. That terrible, good film, that, I've got to say. 28 days later, even worse. Right, let's have a look quickly. Workers have been told that they can now take 28 days off sick without needing a doctor's note. It's so that GPs can focus on the booster rollout. OK, question 5. Who has Elon Musk offered $5,000 to take down their Twitter account? Is it A, Hillary Clinton, B, a 19-year-old who tracks his private jet, or C, a 55-year-old who takes pictures of what's in the bins outside Musk's office? Yes. Go on then.
I really hope it's the guy who takes photos of what's in the bins outside his office.
It isn't actually. Albie, what do you think?
Is it B?
Yes, it's B. Well done, Albie. You win it. Well done. Elon Musk offered 19-year-old $5,000 to take down a Twitter account that tracks his private jet. 4-0 to you, Albie. Well done.